And right before I turned 40, they took my ovaries and my fallopian tubes. So I still have my uterus, but that's what they recommended. And my mom, we lost mom to ovarian cancer 12, 13 years ago.
Woo.
Through this process, I also got genetic testing done, and the results revealed that I'm BRCA1 positive. So I
Wow.
have that BRCA1 mutation. And for
Wow.
my friends listening who don't know what that means, the way it was explained to me is it's a spelling error in your DNA. So I have that spelling error. And what that means is that put me at higher than average risk for breast and ovarian. Now, mom, we lost to ovarian. I was already diagnosed
Oh,
with breast. So it
yeah.
was a no-brainer, like you saying yes, to say remove it.
Hi, everybody. This is Diane Gilman, formerly known as the Queen of Jeans on QVC-HSN, but now the proud host of my podcast, Too Young to Be Old, also the title of my second book. And we are celebrating, although that may not be the greatest word to use, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, October. I have got with me an incredible woman, Sarita Parmar. She is a coach, a mentor, a businesswoman, a mom, and perhaps most especially for us, a breast cancer survivor with an incredible attitude and foundational way of dealing with major trauma in your life. We all want to hear this story. Now, Sarita, unbelievable, but you're also firstborn daughter of immigrants, as am I. So when you are a firstborn daughter, it's not like being a firstborn son, but truthfully, there's a lot of expectations. And as a kid, for me, born in 1945, cancer was not even really a thing. I mean, it didn't really become a thing until the mid to late 70s. You never thought, wow, 1 in every 3 women is going to have breast cancer. You just thought, please God, let it not happen to me. My audience has heard my story, how I had symptoms, but I just kept telling myself I was too busy. It was the peak of my career. I was commuting to Europe twice a month minimum. How could I stop? How could this be? No cancer in my family. Tell us your story, from symptoms to diagnosis to how you mentally, emotionally, and spiritually coped with this killer.
Wow. Thank you for sharing your story. It's so exciting to be here today. So I got to say, Diane, I listened to the podcast that you put out yesterday about your story. And several times I paused what I was doing and I was nodding my head. There were so many parallels. So I may hop all over the place, but you know what? One of the things is you're too busy. I discovered the lump by myself. And I turn over and I was laying in bed. So I reach over and I Google, because immediately you feel a lump and you think tumor, cancer. Google tells me not all tumors or lumps are cancerous.
Yeah.
So I'm laying there thinking, okay, cool, it's not cancerous. So I didn't make it to the doctor. I didn't even have a family doctor. And it was probably about 2 weeks later, I thought, yeah, okay, let's just get it checked out to be safe. And, doctor at the walk-in clinic examines me and he goes, oh, it's probably benign. So I'm thinking, as if I have any medical knowledge. I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. He sends me away for an ultrasound and the text says it's most likely benign. So I was like, sweet, that's 3 people now, so it's got to be benign. And except he said, to be prudent, recommend a biopsy. And I'm like, what the heck? You agree it's benign. I agree.
Ah,
It's fine. And I will never forget, it was Dr. Liskey. And I remember because he told me my name rhymes with whiskey. And his head shoots up and he goes, no. He goes, could you imagine in the off chance it wasn't? And so, because he reacted so strongly, I went and did a biopsy. And what do you know? It came back as a triple negative cancer,
ooh.
minimum stage 3 is what
Well,
they,
I had they couldn't agree 2.5, stage 3, but I also wound up having cancer in both breasts, and each breast was a completely different kind of cancer. And I remember going through that biopsy. It took almost 8 hours. It just took forever. Yeah, it was really serious. And I had been the sole caregiver of my husband, who had it spread and was every kind of cancer. And I grew a paranoia for chemo and any kind of treatment because it was 30 years ago. They didn't know. They just irradiated you till they burnt you up. And so radiation, chemo, I saw those as the destroyers.
yeah,
And so my thing was ignore it and deny it until you can't anymore. So there I am, same as you, stage 3.
yeah. And what's interesting is, Diane, you mentioned that I'm the eldest daughter of immigrant parents. And I believe many firstborn children, immigrant or not, will relate to this that you're born into a role. And
Oh,
that role is caretaker. So I'm the oldest of 4 siblings.
hi, it's Diane Gilman. Guess what? If you are in the same bucket I'm in, which is women over 50, and you're thinking to yourself, how do I find out the best products to use? Maybe you've heard me talk about Purity Woods, and maybe you've asked me, I don't know, Diane, why do you love it? I'll tell you. Your skin is your passport to your visual to the world. If your skin is glowy, if your skin is healthy, you just generally look younger and are treated as a more vibrant personality. Why do I like Purity Woods? 100% organic. There is so much pollution in the air, so much pollution even when if I go to wash my face with tap water. So many chemicals. I truly appreciate products that not only feel pure, but the scent of Purity Woods is just unbelievably refreshing. So, you know what? Give it a try. Get a discount using the code in the caption. Purity Woods. I love these products, and two of my very favorites from Purity Woods are the makeup remover, the exfoliator, which is just sort of like magic. So, also, ladies, remember one more thing. As we age past 50, we do not turn over our skin cells as quickly as we did in our 20s, 30s, or 40s. You need not only a great makeup remover, but you need a great exfoliator to urge new skin cells to come to the fore. Purity Woods, they got it all.
And there's immigrant parents. Not only are you growing up, in navigating 2 cultures, but you're used to being caretaker. You're there. You're your parents', right-hand person, so to speak.
Represent
And so,
ethos. Yes.
yeah, and you get used to taking care of everybody. And, at that point, when the breast cancer diagnosis was delivered to me, I had already gone through a divorce, which to this day, hands down, was the hardest thing I ever had to do. And again, it wasn't because of the end of the marriage. Him and I had already decided it was over, but it was, separating myself from the cultural conditioning and programming. Like
Yes.
I grew up speaking Punjabi, and there is no, I don't believe, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no word for divorce in Punjabi because divorce isn't a thing.
I know you are a performer and you are supporting your family. If you are a natural people pleaser, and I'm like a puppy, I want everybody around me to be amused, to be laughing, to be happy. I'll be the family clown. And then you get something negative like this that makes you feel helpless. It's very contradictory to your role in life, and I think it truly plays in. So you get this diagnosis, and how do you feel? I literally went out of my body. I had no,
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
ice cold, and I remained that way for about
Hmm.
10, 11, 12 months. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is going through a divorce, going through the loss of both parents, right?
Woo.
So I find I, historically speaking, I always go into business mode. And so when that doctor called me into the office to tell me the results of that biopsy and deliver that news, I remember him walking in with his laptop and he had this like look on his face. He's like, I'm sorry. He kept apologizing. And I remember I didn't get emotional. I didn't cry. I almost got stoic. And that's what I do because I
Me
want
too.
to solve the problem. So I don't remember feeling any emotion. Okay, this is why people tell me I have to get into my heart and out of my head. I just had an aha moment.
Not,
So he said to me, he kept apologizing. And I remember I was consoling him. And I was like, it's okay. It's okay.
oh my God.
And I wanted to know, cool, you've identified it. What next? What do we do now? And in my head, I'm like, okay, I need to call my sisters. I had left my daughter at my best friend's daughter's birthday party. I'm like, well, I got to go back there. I'm not announcing it to her during the birthday
No,
party.
of
So
course.
in my head, I'm already formulating a plan. You tell me, doctor, what's next? Okay, cool. You're going to send me to the oncologist or the surgeon, whatever it was at that time. I'm like, cool, done. Now I got to go back to the party. I got to do this. I got to do this. Just very, what do we do?
Pragmatic. And for me, the one thing that I got, there was this saving grace because I'd been on TV, because I was the number one fashion tele-retail personality. People knew me. So I remember my surgeon walking in, looking me up and down and saying, Diane, people like you do the very best at treatment. You've worked, pardon me for my language, but it's literal. You've worked your ass off all your life. You've broken through every barrier, and this will just be another barrier for you to break through. And once she put it into those terms, like Diane, you've got the skills, you've got the mindset to tolerate this and deal with it. That was everything for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Diane, so many parallels. It reminds me, one of my dearest friends, Rima, her dad called me. He never calls me. And he had gone through it himself. Very tough individual, loyal, the provider, the protector of his family. He calls me up and he's all like, "Hey, I heard the news through Reem. Sarita, you're going to go ahead and you're going to treat it like what it is. It's nothing." And
Yeah.
it resonated. I'm getting goosebumps now. Diane, I kid you not, that resonated
Yeah.
so freaking deep that I
Yeah.
carried that mentality, that mindset with me. It's nothing. And I do have to say, I'm going to take the opportunity when I was listening to your podcast and you talked about putting it in a bucket and putting it on the shelf. People
Absolutely.
have also told me that I compartmentalize. I've had counselors saying it's okay to compartmentalize, but make sure you come back to unpack it.
You know,
So with me, and I'm not famous like you. I wasn't on national TV. However, the city that I live in, we're a small business community. Everybody knows everybody. And I remember intentionally avoiding downtown, intentionally avoiding the places I used to take clients for lunch because I thought, once I went through chemo, I did lose all my hair. And I thought these people know me one way. If I show up with a bald head, they're
Uh,
all going to know something's up, and they don't know me well enough. I had my circle, my crew who knew everything, but I didn't want to be known as Sarita, the girl that got cancer. I
yes.
thought, and I'm drawing a circle for anybody not watching and just listening, but I felt like Sarita Parmar is all these things as I draw this circle. And I'm drawing one dot in that circle, and breast cancer is a part of who Sarita Parmar is.
Oh, totally.
And and
Yes.
that's how I lived. I did what I could.
I
But
had back on air with about 3/8 of an inch of hair. Now, my hair is halfway down my back, and
mm,
my hair has always been what I hid behind, my best
yeah,
beauty asset, my glory, and something, quite frankly, I took for granted. And that's
yeah,
something we need to get into, what you don't take for granted anymore. So I came back on air 30 pounds heavier from steroid weight. So I'm busting out of the clothing and no hair. Because if your hair is big, your body tends to look smaller. And I thought my audience is either going to hate me for this or they're going to understand. And wow, they were so gracious and so kind. But I had to wear a wig for a while. I didn't wear it on air because I didn't want to get back into that again. And I wanted to not color my hair and have formaldehyde next to my scalp. But
yeah.
there is that feeling that you don't have all of you back. And
That's
as a
right.
your hair is such a big deal, but your hair grew back, which it
It
doesn't
did.
study.
It
And
did.
I ask you, you were also put into surgical menopause at 40. And, I remember, and this was purely karmic luck, Sarita. I had to have a small day clinic kind of tweak done way at least 8 months before I even started thinking something's wrong with my breast and the aching doesn't stop. And the doctor very casually said to me, I don't know what you're doing with those ovaries and fallopian tubes and uterus. You're
Yeah.
already 71 years old, Diane. That's old, withered up stuff that's just a cancer magnet. Hey, I've got a great idea. Let's do a hysterectomy while we're doing.
Mm,
And I thought, yeah, okay, cancer magnet. That makes sense. And that doesn't sound good. Take it all away. And you know what, Sarita? If I had said no, I don't want to complicate the day surgery. I just want to get in and out. I would not have survived because
mm,
I am absolutely sure my stage 3 cancer would have gone straight to every female organ I had.
yeah.
So just by karmic luck, just by saying one word, okay, that part of me saved my future life.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And I am really pleased to hear that because there are, like, first of all, doctors and surgeons, excuse me, are fantastic for, and I've shared this before, if there's something trying to kill you, for ripping you open, sewing you back up, eliminating it, and doing everything. But nobody talks to you about how it affects the quality of your life.
Uh,
And I am pleased to see, because generally speaking, doctors aren't taught anything about menopause. They might have one class, 1 hour. So there is more talk about it. So on that piece, I do just want to say, advocate for yourself. Don't give away your power to someone just because they're wearing a white lab coat. And my doctors, my whole medical team was freaking phenomenal. Now, I also, yeah, you're right. I was put into medical menopause right before, like, I turned 40 in August, 5 years
what
ago.
awesome, huh?
And right before I turned 40, they took my ovaries and my fallopian tubes. So I still have my uterus, but that's what they recommended. And my mom, we lost mom to ovarian cancer 12, 13 years ago.
Woo.
And through this process, I also got genetic testing done, and the results revealed that I'm BRCA1 positive. So I
Wow.
have that BRCA1 mutation. And for
Wow.
my friends listening who don't know what that means, the way it was explained to me is it's a spelling error in your DNA. So I have that spelling error. And what that means is that put me at higher than average risk for breast and ovarian. Now, mom, we lost to ovarian. I was already diagnosed
Oh,
with breast, so it
yeah.
was a no-brainer, like you saying yes, to say remove it. But it was a whole new journey after that being put into menopause. I am very pleased to share. There's a lot of miscommunication about hormone therapy. I am on hormone replacement
Oh,
therapy, and I
fantastic.
cannot imagine what my world would be like if I didn't have it. I
Now,
mean, there are people who can't take it and they figure it out, but there's hope.
still,
There is
I,
hope. Don't give up.
I was still at 72 years old, which was totally incorrect for me. But doctors allowed me to be on HRT, hormone replacement therapy. And my surgeon, who was really the head of all cancer surgery at the hospital that I went to, said, you flooded your system with hormones. It's all estrogen. It's cancer. So, where I
Mm.
would love to be back on HRT, because I think that estrogen is really the foundation of female well being. I cannot, and I feel that very dramatically in joint inflammation, aches and pains, a diminished skeletal system. But I'm going to ask you because I want to get to not just the physical, but how the physical imports the emotional and the spiritual. You talk about not merely surviving, but actually thriving through and after treatment. And no one is going to be fooling around here and saying, "Oh, it's so easy," and it's not easy. And it is a lot to wrap your brain around to think that you have a mortality based disease that everybody around you basically is thinking in their head, and you can read their brain. Oh, she's not going to make it. I mean, her mother died of cancer, this, that. How did you come to terms with it emotionally? And how did you come to spiritually thrive afterwards?
Oh, Diane, that's such a powerful question and one I have to think about. So, it's definitely a process, right? Exactly like you said, you're just not like, oh, yes, this is easy. It was hell. It freaking sucked. Going through chemo, having a bilateral mastectomy, getting an infection, having more bonus surgeries because of that freaking infection, radiation, antibiotics, this, that. So I got to tell you, when I was physically going through it, because I had regularly scheduled appointments, that became my full-time job. So you're
Oh,
just busy focusing on the physical
it
aspect.
is.
I didn't feel like I had the space to emotionally or mentally deal with anything. But as soon as that physical treatment ended and I was discharged by my oncologist, which one would think, hey, fantastic news. And it was right, I'm 45 now. It was right before my 40th birthday. Or no, yeah, right before my 40th birthday that he discharged me as a patient because everything came back clear. That's when I was like, oh, now what?
Yeah,
I
what do
wasn't,
I now?
yeah.
Exactly.
And so I went through, and I'm sure hormones played a role, being alone played a role. I had like my sisters, my brother in laws, my best friend Laura, my partner Neil, around me all the time. And one of them, and I had other friends too, they would take me to my appointments, they would check in daily. So I felt like when the physical treatment ended, everybody went back to their day to
Yeah.
day lives. So not only do I not have these medical appointments because the nurses had become my social life, that's gone. My loved ones are back to their day to day lives.
Here I am.
I was
Right.
alone. And I'm not saying woe is me. It was fantastic. I needed that time, Diane, because now that physical part is over. Now, I remember going through feelings of guilt. Guilt because I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe how much I put my loved ones through. I went through sadness. I felt alone. I'm different. I felt like the shell of a human I used to be. That I'll probably attribute to medical menopause. But this huge range of emotions. I started yoga. And yoga helped me. There were days I would cry on the mat because my amazing yoga instructor, Rochelle, just the way she talked, I felt that it helped me build emotional strength off the mat. I journaled like crazy, tried to identify, hey, what the heck am I feeling to try and come to terms with it. So it was really being alone, doing my own thing that helped me. And mindset is huge. It doesn't matter what the heck you're going through, but I had this deeper feeling that I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. Oh, you talked about cancer in the 60s, 70s. Like this is the 2000s now. Like I was diagnosed in 2018. Cancer research has
Wow.
jumped leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
So I had that. I had that knowledge.
Well, I think for me, it was also admitting emotionally that and spiritually that I had a very toxic lifestyle. That I worked every holiday, I worked every hour of the day. I sometimes
Hmm.
for a day and a half, 2 days with 2 hours of sleep because I was just on a rotational cycle as a top performer. I just represented money. So when I got away from that, and I had never been home on a work day ever in my adult life, suddenly you go to chemo, you're home. And I'm starting to think to myself, God, is this what real women do? They actually get to do other stuff during the day that they want to. But that allowed me to have the time to think, okay, most people retire at 55 or 60. You're already 72, 73. What do you really want to do with the rest of your life, Diane? I don't think as I'm like a freight train at full speed, I'm going to get where I'm going and it means a lot to me. Nothing would have stopped me to put on the brakes and think to myself, in all honesty, I don't like my life anymore. Yeah, I'm number one. I like that. Yeah, I've got a lot of vanities. So nice to be in front of a TV camera, but I am not fulfilled. I am not stimulated. I do not feel appreciated or nurtured. And what are you going to do about it? And as difficult as it was for me to give up my female community on tele-retail, and we had about 650,000 women. It wasn't a small community. I had to say goodbye and reform my entire life. That I can say is what cancer did for me. It made me think, you know what? You're not going to live forever. And life is such a privilege and a pleasure that if I really do get a second chance, I'm going to do something helpful for other women. I'm going to do something good for myself. And I've been living under that umbrella of gratitude with a whole different spiritual outlook for 5 years now since the treatment was over with. What about you, Sarita?
Oh gosh, I'm getting goosebumps listening to you because, again, another parallel between us. So I work primarily with women as well. And For me, it was always, again, immigrant parents, education was very important. And I'm glad. I'm glad they raised me the way that they did. So it was education, then you get a good job, right? So, and I think in North American culture, a lot of it's a rat race, climbing up the corporate ladder. And I did that. And I made good money in business banking. But I hear what you're saying about non-standard hours. And there was a lot of stress with that. Yes, I made good money. Yes, I did well, but it comes at a price. And then so after my treatment, I knew I did not want to jump back into that
There
grind.
you go.
So I was very mindful about what it is that I wanted to do. So I landed with a nonprofit and I ended up managing a contract for women in business. And it was essentially, think about it like a small business resource center for women. Through it, I got to work with amazing women, learn from amazing women, doing powerful things. I delivered workshops, arranged networking events, etc., etc. And I thrived in that. I loved it. And I could work my own hours within reason. And, anyways, when that contract came up, I thought, now is my opportunity. I've always admired entrepreneurs, the energy, and I've worked with entrepreneurs for 20 years now. And I always sat on the other end of the table listening to them. And I thought, I want to be a part of that energy. And so about a year and a half ago, I took the leap into self employment. And I've got a teenage daughter. And gratitude, there's days I will stop what I'm doing, I kid you not, and I take a moment just to feel. And I'm just thankful for my life, to
Yep.
do what I can do, grateful for the people I have in my life, the love I have in my life. And I pause and it's like I feel it head to toe. And it's like, do not take this for granted.
Yep.
And it helps keep a girl's mood in check too. If you're going to be mad about something, it's like, hey, let it go. I'm definitely better with my anger. And the other thing I want to add to that is it absolutely, exactly like you talk about a second act and a third act. I say it's Sarita 2.0. And I want to design a life that feels good to me. And a part of that is designing who I work with, what I do for work, and the hours that I work. So, one of the things that I don't do, generally speaking, is 3 o'clock. I want to be there when my daughter gets home from school. I feel she needs me more as a teenager than she did as a toddler. It's
Right.
just emotionally. And so I get to do that. 3 o'clock, I don't take appointments because I generally schedule an hour that I'm available for her. And that's when she shares everything that went on about her day. Yeah.
So it's, to me, I saw cancer as the great teacher, as the great philosopher. I changed my lifestyle, I changed my life philosophy. I went from being really self-indulgent and obsessed to understanding my place with a chance to come back and survive, that I needed to take my communication skills I've learned on TV and help women. And part of helping women is saying, yes, breast cancer is very scary, but generally not a killer. And you will survive. But more than that, you may actually thrive. You may become
Yes.
a much more spiritually based, kinder, more empathetic person. You may start to understand your place in the universe. I did not think it was coincidence that I had such bad primary diagnosis and came back the way I did. And I knew I came back for a purpose and have been working on honing that and understanding it and implementing itself ever since. And I hope if my parents were alive today, they would be very proud of me as the only child and the firstborn American in my family. Actually, the first educated, college educated family member as well. And so wonderful talking to you, Sarita, because there are so many links between us, how we felt, how we went into it, how we came out of it, and most especially way beyond breast cancer, how you as a female independently and on your own can deal with challenge and crisis and actually come out an untraumatized, bigger, more fully enriched person.
Yeah, I love that. And you know what, Diane? Bad things happen all the time,
And bad
but
things, oh,
you
yeah,
don't want a victim mindset. You
totally.
know, instead of why me, woe is me, why not you? Take it as a gift. It may not feel like a gift in the moment. And I'm a recovering people pleaser,
Oh,
right?
you
We've
too.
chatted about this and we touched on it during this conversation as well. And it changes. You, like you said, I echo everything you just said in the last minute here. And it helps you not only, you reevaluate your priorities, but you get this different perspective. Things that used to bother you, you realize in the grand scheme of things, they're irrelevant.
Don't sweat.
And the people that I choose to surround myself with, they're people who they nourish me. They give me energy. And
Yeah.
if you're not doing that, I'm sorry. I don't, well, I'm not sorry, but there will be distance.
Yeah, there has to be. And
Yeah.
so we are going to wrap this particular podcast up. And it's, believe me, it's not easy for either Sarita or myself to talk about what could have been the worst part of our lives. But frankly, when I look back, my memories of chemo and going through the surgeries, I will leave with this. My oncologist, who I did not actually get along with very well, um, said something that was so smart, and it will stay with me forever. I said, how do women deal with this afterwards? Are they bitter? Are they terrified it's going to happen again? She said, and we were talking about having my breast removed. I wasn't very emotionally attached to my chest, but I didn't want to go through what turned into like a 10-hour surgery. She said, Diane, in the brain, the female brain, pain from something like surgery or chemo or radiation is exactly like childbirth. You go through it, and 2 months later, you've got the reward, and you don't and cannot remember the pain. And so, Sarita and I leave you with this. What could be the worst of times? You can actually, just by attitude and headset, turn into the best of times. That cancer was the greatest learning experience of my life. I would not be going on with as much productive energy as I have if I wasn't aware how I went through that. And so, you know what? You are a testament, Sarita, to female strength, courage, and basically connecting as you did through yoga with your inner self. And so, with that, ladies, we say cheers to all of you. And we know you've got the strength and the ability to fight and to take anything that appears to be really scary and impossible to challenge into a triumph. Sarita, all my best. Bravo to you.
Right back at you, Diane. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to Too Young to Be Old podcast. The episode may be over, but the fun doesn't have to stop here. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at The Diane Gilman, or visit our website, thedianegilman.com. If you like the show, leave us a rating or a review and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. And until then, don't forget, age is just a number. Together, we'll prove that we are all
too young to be old.